Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Come on, it's going to rain. Let's go. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for that warm welcome. Thank you for coming here. This is a pretty good sign for freedom to have this many people come out on a holiday Saturday. So God bless you all. And Carol, thank you. There's no way, by the way, that somebody like me, somebody from the private sector, could step up the plate and have any hope of becoming a U.S. Senator without the tireless efforts of the volunteers, people like Carol, and she worked incredibly hard in the campaign. But people like you, too, that got involved around the state. So you're the folks that made it happen in 2010. You're the folks that will make it happen in 2012 and 14 and 16 and 18 and 20. I also want to quick thank the Sheboygan Liberty Coalition, Oriana, Toby, all the volunteers who put this day and made this thing possible here today. I see Vicky's yakking over there, but I also have to thank Queen Vicky. Yeah, she's not paying attention. Listen, without the backing, without the fact that talk radio exists, we fiscal conservatives wouldn't exist. I mean, it's just true. So again, I want to thank Vicki. I want to thank all of her fellow talk radio hosts for educating the public day in and day out and actually working tirelessly for freedom and liberty. It makes a real difference. I want to make sure I get this thing rolling before the rains come in, so I've got a couple points I want to make. Let me first start with the premise that all the problems that this nation faces right now, and we face many, high unemployment, a very sluggish economy, a woeful, inadequate level of job creation in this country. Those are symptoms. They're symptoms. They're very severe symptoms, but they're not the root cause. The root cause from my standpoint really is the size, the scope, all the regulations, all the intrusion, and the cost of our federal government. That's the problem. I'd like to try and prove that case, and let me start by just giving you a little history lesson here. You know, back in 1902, the federal government spent 2% of our entire economy. So every dollar that was generated by the American economy 100 years ago, only 2% was filtered through our federal government. 5% was spent by state and local governments. So total government totaled 7% of our economy. Now from my standpoint, that was the vision of our founding fathers. A limited government. Government close to the people. Government close to the governed. We've come a long way, and not for the good. From my standpoint, a basic premise of the genius of our founding fathers really was that government was something to fear. Not something to run to solve your problems, but something to fear. They had come from very oppressive monarchies. They understood that we did need government. We have to defend our nation. We do need regulations to make sure our private sector and our free market system works. We need a government to protect our liberties. Government is a necessary part of our lives, but to a certain extent you can consider it a necessary evil. Our founding fathers understood that. What's happened the last 100 years? Slowly but surely, we have been trading our freedoms. I call it the devil's bargain. For a false hope, a false sense of security. Is anybody feeling particularly secure right now? No. That's unfortunate. Our government has grown from 2%, in total 7% of our economy, to now the federal government is 25% of our economy. You add in state and local governments, and we're at 41%. Now let me put that in perspective. We take a look at European socialist models that have structural unemployment of 10%, low growth rates of 1 to 2%. Norway's government in relationship to the economy is 40%. Greece is 47%. France is 53%. Now, we know how those models end. Take a look at the Soviet Union. Take a look at Venezuela. Now, there's a country that has real oil wealth, and Hugo Chavez is turning it into an economic basket case. Look at Cuba. I have no idea why anybody would want to take this marvel, this miracle that we call America, and turn it into Venezuela or Cuba. I have no idea why anybody would want to do that. For the last month, I've been traveling all over the state of Wisconsin, and I've had a pretty simple message. I've been making two primary points. It's been a very fun experience. I love being in Wisconsin. But I've been talking in front of crowds, and I'll get in front of them in the morning, and they've got a big smile on their face, and it hasn't been my pleasure to turn those smiles into frowns. Because I've been talking about the very serious and urgent financial situation this country faces. The financial tipping point that an awful lot of us are talking about here. But I want to talk a little bit more first about the cultural tipping point. It's what Senator Grothman was talking about. It's what I just described in terms of our ever-expanding size of government. Until Americans reclaim their heritage of personal responsibility, of a self-reliant people, and turn away from this culture of entitlement and dependency, where we're sitting here waiting on bated breath to see what President Obama is going to tell us next Thursday in terms of his new job program. Here, I got a jobs program. Let's repeal the entire Obama agenda. You know, I grew up in America that valued hard work, that celebrated success. Remember that? Unfortunately, what I've witnessed over my lifetime is a very slow but sure drift. And I would argue in the last 2.5 years, a lurch toward this culture of entitlement and dependency. And folks, it's not an America I recognize, and it's not an America that's going to work. So let me take just a couple minutes, and I'm going to turn those smiles into frowns, but then at the very last part of my speech here, I'll give you a little hope. But it's important not to sugarcoat our current situation, because our current financial situation is dire. It is urgent. It needs to be attended to now. I deal with numbers. I'm an accountant. So let me start telling you about a few scary numbers. I'm going to start slow and small, and I'm going to start building them. But let's first start with 1.75 trillion. That's the amount that this administration's Small Business Administration commissioned a study, and the result was that $1.75 trillion is the cost of complying with federal regulations in just 1 year. That's 12% of the size of our total economy. It is choking off job creation. It is hampering our economy's ability to grow and recover. $16 trillion. That's the amount of money our federal government has spent since the 60s in a failed attempt in a war on poverty. The result? All the unintended consequences of those good intentions, are the fact that we have more people in poverty today than we had in 1965. And people feel entitled, and they are dependent on our government. And just take a look at the social pathologies of their families. By and large, the welfare system has destroyed the American family. That's not a good foundation for a society. Here's the big one. Vicki was a little late in her numbers, a little old with her number. It wasn't 14.3 trillion. Right now our nation's debt is $14.6 trillion. Now truthfully, that wouldn't be a problem if our economy was $100 trillion large, but it's not. It's $14.6 trillion. And when you have a debt to GDP ratio that's 100%, that's a very bad spot for any nation state to be in. It's no different, folks, than a family. When you're taking a look at how much mortgage can you afford, you take a look at how much income you earn. If you take on too big a mortgage, and America is taking on too large a mortgage, you go bankrupt. Now, I'll just give you two more scary numbers. And these are actually the two scariest. I would encourage everybody to go to a website called usdebtclock.org. It's got some great information on there, but I'm going to hone in on two basic numbers. The unfunded liability of just the top three entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, and the prescription drug program. And the unfunded liability means the amount of money we would need today in a bank to pay for the promises of those three programs is $114 trillion. Now, the U.S. Debt Clock also reports that our total U.S. asset base, corporate assets, small business assets, household assets, is about $75 trillion. So, our government has promised people in just three programs $114 trillion, and we only have assets in this nation of $75 trillion. And folks, that's the definition of a problem. It's a definition of a huge problem. Now, the other part of my message, you've got long faces. I'll get to the good part. But the other part of my message is, this is not a moment in time to sit back and expect somebody else is going to fix the problem. I think it's abundantly clear that the current crop in Washington will not fix this problem. They had their chance with this debt ceiling vote. Now, I'll give you a couple more numbers. I have to make this relative. You have to understand what the situation is. 10 years ago, our entire federal budget was $1.8 trillion. In 10 years, we've doubled that. This year, we'll spend $3.6 trillion. And when you hear Washington speak talk about cuts, what they're talking about is President Obama wants to spend $46 trillion additional dollars over the next 10 years. He wants to take annual spending from $3.6 trillion to $5.7 trillion. The House budget would spend $40 trillion. There's your $6 trillion cut. But they would still take spending from $3.6 trillion to $4.6. All we're talking about is we're not talking about cutting anything. We're just talking about limiting the growth of government. It's important to understand that concept. But the reason I voted against that debt ceiling agreement is it didn't even really begin to solve the problem. The only thing that you and I would consider a cut is it takes out of 30% of our budget, the discretionary portion, and folks, that's the only stuff that's appropriated. 70% of our budget, all the entitlements, all the unfunded liability is on automatic pilot. It's not even touched every year. It just grows out of control. But this wonderful agreement that people actually were patting themselves on the back about in Washington, saying, hey, we changed the conversation. We took a step in the right direction. It takes that discretionary budget, which this year we will spend $1.05 trillion, and it says next year we'll spend $1.043 trillion. The following year, $1.047 trillion. Okay, I guess we're cutting $10 billion, but in a $3,600 billion year budget, it's not even a rounding error. $10 billion is what we spend each and every day, and we're borrowing about $4 billion. So again, folks, don't expect the current crop in Washington to fix this problem. This is a point in time, and that's why I'm heartened to see so many people here today. This is time for citizens, for patriots, for people that love this nation to step up the plate and take matters into your own hand. And that means work hard, day in and day out until November of 2012, to make sure that we have a very successful 2012 by retiring President Obama. And sending me some allies, some real fiscal conservatives in the Senate, and growing our numbers in the House. So I'm not depressing news. By far, the best part about being your United States Senator is the time I get to spend with the finest among us. The people that protect our public safety. The members of our military. A few weeks ago, I visited Walter Reed, the rehabilitation ward there. There were probably about 12 soldiers there. Now, unfortunately, in the rehabilitation ward at Walter Reed, a whole soldier is just missing a foot. And by the way, those little landmines that take off a foot, the military personnel refer to those as toe ticklers. The other members of the military I met there, folks, they had horribly broken bodies. But was so awe-inspiring, and I wish I could adequately convey to you how uplifted my spirit was when I left Walter Reed, was the fact that their spirit is not broken. I'm talking to triple amputees. I'm talking to their wives, their beautiful wives and children that are there going through rehab with them. One individual that I was talking to, a triple amputee, said, "Sir, when I get done here, I go up 2 floors to the floor where they bring in the new guys, and my job is to boost their morale." 2 weeks after I was sworn in, I had an opportunity to go to Afghanistan. And I visited the Marine base down there called Camp Leatherneck in the Helmand province. It's been a real hotbed. They've suffered many casualties. And we were being briefed by the commanding general. And kind of summing everything up, the general basically made this point. He said, anybody who questions our current generation, their commitment, their capability, their mettle, you come to Camp Leatherneck and you meet my fine young Marines. You know, when I was on the campaign trail, people would come up to me and they say, you know, boy, you're really making a sacrifice. I'd shake my head and go, no. The people making a sacrifice are these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids that stepped up to the plate to not only defend our freedom, but they're traveling halfway around the world. They're setting up democracies. They're defending freedom of people whose cultures have given rise to our enemies. Think of how extraordinary that is. That is what inspired me. And that is what I am hoping, I am praying, will inspire you. So my final message here today is, first of all, God bless you for coming out here. Make sure you talk to every one of your friends, your family members, your neighbors, your business associates. Utilize every relationship, every power of persuasion, your communication ability, your power to influence people. Utilize that. Because, folks, this nation is something incredibly precious. I mean, I said this during the campaign. I hope nobody ever got tired of hearing it. But literally think about the span of human history. Think of how in this 235-year-old experiment we call America, think of how magnificent it really is. Think of the sacrifice of people throughout our history, the sacrifices they made for freedom. Think of how we're blowing it. In the end, folks, this is a fight for freedom. And you're here today because you know this is not somebody else's fight. This is our fight, and it is a fight we absolutely must win. So God bless your efforts, and God continue to bless the greatest nation in the history of mankind, America. Thank you very much.